president on his birthday.
She has no underwear on. She's turning.
She's coming. She's coming. The Australian singer gave the president a birthday gift from down under. The fellas are suspended.
If we win the World Championships, will you reinstate us?
Oh!
Your team is like a heated mess, so what once was a little messy is now even messier.
She's on fire!
Pitch Perfect 2.
Crushed it.
Rated PG-13.
Yeah, one would automatically think that Pitch Perfect 2 would stand no chance against the highly anticipated Mad Max movie, but box office said otherwise. Welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. We have 3 movies to look at as we continue on with the summer 2015 movie season, and we start off with really one of the big surprise hits of the year, and that is Pitch Perfect 2, which is, of course, the sequel to the 2012 movie, which in and of itself was a big surprise hit. And kind of like with other comedy franchises like The Naked Gun and Austin Powers and Meet the Parents, the second movie was much more successful than the first movie was. I mean, yeah, this one made more money, I think, in its opening weekend than the first film did entirely in domestic box office. And that was unexpected overall, especially with a highly anticipated Mad Max movie coming out that same weekend. But following an incident involving Fat Amy having a wardrobe malfunction at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, the Barton Bellas were suspended from the circuit of a cappella performing, and in order to regain their status, the Bellas entered the international competition, a colossal task since no American team has ever won. So essentially, they've taken the Pitch Perfect series in general and have kind of turned it into the Mighty Ducks franchise, pretty much, because, yeah, this is pretty much the plot of D2, the Mighty Ducks. I mean, the Mighty Ducks had to go up against Team Iceland. I remember that because I love D2, the Mighty Ducks. That's probably my favorite one of the series. But yeah, they went up against Team Iceland in that one. And this one is pretty much just that in general. And the franchise would continue in the Mighty Ducks form because Pitch Perfect 3 followed in the same format of D3, the Mighty Ducks, in which it was a shitty threequel. But we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, like I said, the first Pitch Perfect movie was a surprisingly really good movie. It was funny, it was clever, it was brilliantly fun, it was surprisingly enjoyable to watch. It had a lot of good a cappella music, a really strong cast, a lot of really funny moments, a huge career upswing for both Anna Kendrick and Rebel Wilson at the time. And with the sequel, yeah, it's going to be hard to top what made the first film work so well. And the big question was, were they going to try to top themselves or just go for a simple cash grab? Well, honestly, it was kind of a little bit of both overall. On the whole, it's kind of a disappointment compared to the first movie, especially with how good that was, but at the same time, I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate the movie in general. They're trying to do what was done before, by upping the ante, taking the characters across the globe, while at the same time, there's parts of it that really do feel like a cash grab. And I'll start with the negatives overall, because they are pretty prominent. First off, the comedy, I think it tries a little too hard to go for the raunchy humor. I mean, way too hard. Like, they just try so hard to cram it all in there, especially with Rebel Wilson's character, who slowly but surely becomes kind of like the Alan of the Hangover series, where she just becomes so annoying, and it's not really the actor's fault, it's the way they write the character. One of the things I really liked about the first movie was that they weren't cramming down the raunchy humor down your throat. Like, it was actually letting these characters be funny. Like in Bridesmaids, it just seemed like Elizabeth Banks, it just seemed like they were just used to the gross-out comedy, and in What to Expect When You're Expecting, you know, that movie's just bad on so many levels. I really can't blame her for the faults of that film in general. Like, it felt like they were trying really hard to push her as the next Russell Brand, and not in the good way. But then again, Russell Brand is not really that great has really fallen off a cliff since Get Him to the Greek and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I mean, the first movie actually made me laugh hard when she was in it. It was one of the first movies that I ever saw Rebel Wilson in that made me go like, wow, this woman's got a bright future ahead of her. And they really did not do a good job of keeping that same level of greatness to her in the movies to come. Like, I mean, in this movie, it felt like they were trying to bring her back to that gross-out level that she had started in with Bridesmaids. I mean, you made her a funny character in that movie without resorting to the same cliches, but, I mean, why can't you just do it again here? But it's not just her. When they try to throw gross-out or raunchy humor, they have a new character in here, played by, no, it's a senior Bella from Guatemala, and all she does in this movie is spots out the most pointless things about other races that have nothing to do with the situation. It's like they're really trying way too hard to throw in this humor that really does not need to be there. It's not as bad as what they did to Martin Mull on Dads, where they just have him spout out racist things every time. If you haven't seen Dads, it's that show by Seth MacFarlane that was on for like a season and just basically wasted both Peter Riegert and Martin Mull, especially Martin Mull, who, like I said nothing but racist things, and it wasn't even funny whatsoever. None of it was even funny, but this comes pretty close. I think the two most pointless running gags in the movie involve Anna Kendrick's character being somewhat sexually attracted to the female leader of the rival a cappella group, and it just goes nowhere. Anna Kendrick's much better than this, and they do absolutely nothing with it at all. But that's nothing compared to the biggest pointless running gag that just made me furious, and that's John Michael Higgins and Elizabeth Banks as the two commentators. That was just torturous because they just kept showing up. In the first movie, they were fine because they weren't all over the movie, and the few times they did show up, they were funny and tolerable. But here, they're really just obnoxious, unfunny, and just downright offensive in terms of how lazy they were trying to come up with jokes and insults, mostly with Higgins' character. These are two great seasoned character actors that can be very funny, and they're just not doing anything of noteworthiness at all. Like, I mean, it's like what happened with Steve Martin in Home. Like, he plays a dumb half-wit leader who does nothing except proclaim how better he is at everybody, and that's the joke. And I give Elizabeth Banks credit. She was the only one keeping her cool most of the time, while Higgins was the one that was really putting out the stupid lines. And that really took a lot of the enjoyment out of me. But then again, Elizabeth Banks is the director of this, which I'm actually kind of surprised she didn't go on that same level with him. It just goes to show you what she's capable is she has a tolerance level with a character like this. And another thing that I really didn't like is that they seem to have way too much story going on. Like, it's one of those sequels where they cram in so much stuff. Kind of like what we just saw with Avengers Age of Ultron not too long ago. But, yeah, the Bellas trying to win a world championship. You got Becker starting an internship at a record company. You got a new girl joining the Bellas, as well as falling in love with Benji from the Troublemakers. You got Bumper and Fat Amy rekindling their relationship. The Bells go to a camp to find their voice again. I mean, it's just like, so much is going on in this movie. It's just like, you can't just be simple with this. Like, I get it. You have to go bigger because the first movie was such a big hit. But you gotta at least simplify the story to make it make sense for the audience. Like, there's a part of the story that I really didn't like. The fact that, you know, they have this running bit about how a cappella singers can't do original songs. And all I can think to myself is, why not? I mean, they never explain why this is a problem. They just say, you can't do that. And that's just the end of the conversation. It's just like, well, why not? There's no rule out there that says that you can't make up original songs. It's just like, I would understand if they give you a reason, like maybe you can't do it because they feel like it's cheating against the rules and all that, but no, they just say, you can't do it, and then that's it. Just like, the only reason they bring this up is so that the Bells have to use an original song to win the world competition in the final scene, and that's it. I mean, it's just, it makes no sense whatsoever. And maybe the biggest problem with the movie overall is that it doesn't focus on all the Bellas as much as the first film did. Like, you've got, you know, the main focus this time around seemed to be on Becca, Fat Amy, Chloe, and Flo. And Emily, the new girl, played by Haley Steinfeld. And then everybody else, like Stacy, Cynthia Rose, Lily, Jessica, Ashley, they're just kind of pushed off to the side and not given much to do. They've got a couple lines here and there, but some of them don't even get a full sentence in this movie. And it's just like, the first movie did a good job of balancing everybody out and giving them each their own say in a situation, but here, it just seemed like the main focus was on the main draws, like Anna Kendrick, Rebel Wilson, Brittany Snow, Haley Steinfeld, and Chrissy Fit, but, I mean, it just didn't feel like the main focus just wasn't there. It seemed to be more centered on the prominent names than the entire group, and that really kind of dinged it in the long run, but to its credit, there are a lot of things I did like. I think the cast overall is working once again well with each other. Anna Kendrick once again gets a lot of good moments on screen. Rebel Wilson does still get some good laughs here and there. I thought the other characters overall did a good enough job. I like the fact they brought everybody back. Skylar Astin, Anna Camp, Adam Devine, and Ben Platt, and they didn't feel forced in. I thought Haley Steinfeld and Katie Segal were great new additions to the film. They still have that charm to work with very well, no matter what material they've given to them. And I gotta say, I thought the cameos overall were actually pretty good. You got David Cross, who had a fun little cameo in here. The whole a cappella challenge sequence, which is basically kind of like the equivalent to the Anchorman newsroom fight, because you got all these different celebrities in here. You got several members of the Green Bay Packers from back then, Jason Jones from The Daily Show, Reggie Watts, John Hodgman, Joe Latruglio. There are actually a lot of funny cameos in here. There's a great bit with Snoop Dogg in there putting out a Christmas album, and Keegan-Michael Key's part in this was really, really funny. This bashing of hipster millennials, which, yeah, it's very funny. And when the comedy isn't focusing on the raunchy humor that much, it still works really well. I like the bits of slapstick, like when somebody gets caught in a bear trap, or when Fat Amy falls down the stairs. Like, it's funny, even if it's simplistic, you get a laugh. And once again, The music overall is really good. The a cappella music is nicely done, and the final musical number I thought was the highlight of the entire film. It was a really, really good scene, and definitely brought the movie back up to where I thought I had it before. It saves the movie from being devoid of any recommendation whatsoever. It really reminded me of Happy Feet 2, which again, it was a sequel that was inferior to the first film, but they had that great sequence, Bridge of Light, that kind of gives it an extra star. I felt like this movie did the exact same thing too. I mean, it's very much like that here. The final sequence does lift the movie back up to being worth something and turns the film around just in time. I mean, like I said, this movie really is like a mix of D2 The Mighty Ducks, Austin Powers The Spy Who Shagged Me, Rocky IV, and Happy Feet 2. D2 because it is the pitch-perfect equivalent of D2 The Mighty Ducks, where it's the American team going up against the evil international team. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, because they do try to pack on more raunchy humor than the humor that made the first film work. Rocky IV, because the final sequence is about as thrilling and intense as the rest of the film could be. Happy Feet 2, because it has that great sequence to save the film from its mediocre presentation. I liked it. It's definitely got more than enough to get it a decent recommendation, but as far as a great movie, on the level of the first film, you're going to be disappointed by that in the long run. It's not a huge letdown retread of the first, like Horrible Bosses 2 was, or the two Hangover sequels. It still has a lot of enjoyment value to it, and I think the acapella numbers still do work very well. The casting still works, and for Elizabeth Banks to come on this with a directorial debut, I thought she did a good job overall. It's a decent little film. I don't think it's as good as the first film is, but it's still fun. If you want to see a good sequel to the series, this is probably your best bet here overall, but don't go in there expecting something as good as the first one, so, overall. So, yeah, like I said, a good movie, not a great one, but trust me, after Pitch Perfect 3, you're going to be praising this one a lot more than that film, because that certainly was what happened to me when I saw Pitch Perfect 3, but again, we're still about 2 years away from that, so. But, yeah, like I said, Pitch Perfect 2 was the surprise hit of that weekend, and you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Mad Max Fury Road came out that same weekend. It was a highly anticipated film. I guess that was a major disappointment, right?
What a lovely day!
No, it's still badass. It's still pretty freaking awesome. And, yeah, George Miller easily kicks the crap out of Ridley Scott, because whenever I see a new movie of his, I get excited for it more than I do for Ridley Scott in general. I mean, not in the case of this year, because he'll have a great movie later in the year, but nowadays it's kind of like that. But, this is, of course, the fourth installment of the Mad Max series, in which you have an apocalyptic story set in the furthest reaches of our planet, in a stark desert landscape where humanity is broken, and almost everyone is crazed, fighting for the necessities of life. Within this world exist two rebels on the run, who just might be able to restore order. There's Max, played by Tom Hardy, a man of action and a man of few words, who seeks peace of mind following the loss of his wife and child in the aftermath of the chaos. And Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, a woman of action and a woman who believes her path to survival may be achieved if she can make it across the desert back to her childhood homeland. And this was a movie that was in development for several years. Try 30 years. I mean, it's been 30 years since the last Mad Max movie. The earliest this thing began production was August of 1998, and they were going to shoot this in 2001, but then, of course, the 9/11 attacks happened, and so basically they said, well, we can't do that. So Mel Gibson was going to star in it, and they tried to get it back into production. They did a couple years later, and, you know, just all these things going on behind the scenes. There was, like, security concerns. You know, they were trying to film in Namibia because the United States and many other countries had tightened travel and shipping restrictions after 9/11. Then the Iraq War happened, and it was abandoned as it was considered a potentially politically sensitive film. Mel Gibson basically lost interest in the film, and so they eventually decided to hold it off altogether. Then they re-put it into production in 2009. Shooting began in 2012. They finished filming in 2012, reshot in 2013, and finally in 2015, it gets released. This makes Ghostbusters 3 seem like a walk in the park, or this basically, it felt like it was going to be like the Duke Nukem Forever of movies, because it took them so long to finally get it made. And yeah, lo and behold, it probably would have been that way, except the fact that, no. Not at all. It is actually a pretty damn good movie. Would I say it's a groundbreaking action movie or a game changer? I wouldn't say that, or the greatest action movie ever made, but I still really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. But there's one thing to keep in mind, like, when I saw this, I never saw the original Mad Max movies. It took me a long time to finally see these films. I think I finally sat down and watched all of them when I saw Furiosa about 9 years later. Yeah, it took me a long time to get to these movies, and yeah, I thought they were all very fun overall, but this movie overall, even if you've never seen the original Mad Max films, you could still enjoy this movie for a number of different reasons. But I'll talk about the stuff that I didn't like first, because there were a couple things. For one thing, it really did seem like that Mad Max was second in line to Furiosa. I mean, it was one of those movies where the movie is called Mad Max Fury Road, but it feels like the character was pushed off to the side like the Lorax or Tom and Jerry in their respective movies, but I mean, not to say that it's a bad thing. It's well welcoming that we have a movie where we got a badass female lead again, because we haven't had that in a long, long time. But here also definitely has her say in the action in this. I mean, at the same time, though, it's called Mad Max, and it feels like Max is in too much of a secondary position in this movie. But to be fair, Max does his fair share of action in this movie, and if you're really going to call it Mad Max Fury Road, make sure Mad Max has as much screen time and importance to the story that the other characters do. The big thing that got to me, though, was the five girls themselves. We really don't get to know too much about them, their characters overall, or just the fact that, they're the five wives of the main villain of the movie, and much of the film, they don't really do a whole lot. One of them gets killed off in the middle of the action, and she was one of the pregnant ones, and how it happens is so out of context, it makes no sense whatsoever. You know, wouldn't it make more sense to keep the pregnant wives away from the action instead of situations where they could easily get killed, like what happens to one of them in this movie? But then again, I'm putting way too much logic in this, because this doesn't really acquire a whole lot of sense or logic. But the great things about the movie, I mean, Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron, excellent as Max and Furiosa. I like Hugh Key Burns playing the great over-the-top villain, Immortan Joe, who was also the main villain in the original film. Nicholas Holt's pretty good as Nux. You got the five wives played by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Riley Keough, Zoe Kravitz, Abby Lee, and Courtney Eaton. Even though I did criticize their involvement, they do have good parts in this movie that do play very well. The music by Junkie XL is top-notch. The cinematography, amazing. The action sequences, incredible. This whole movie works because of the non-stop, over-the-top, spectacular filmed action sequences. This has some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in the theater. You thought the Dust Storm sequence in Ghost Protocol was great? Watch the Dust Storm sequence in this movie, and you'll be amazed at how impressive this is. I mean, this is a movie that I saw in Cinemark XD. I mean, this is the perfect movie for an XD theater. Every action scene, the seat rumbles, and it made you feel like you were part of the movie. And usually XD films don't usually do that. I know IMAX films do that, D-Box seats will do that too, but I mean, it's the best feeling when you see this on a gigantic screen like I did when I first saw this. I never saw the original Mad Max movies, but I have seen them since then, like I said, and I do like all of them. I even really liked Furiosa. I will say Mad Max Fury Road did feel like a lightning in a bottle moment, because when they tried to do Furiosa 9 years later, of course, that flopped them. And I do say unfortunately, because that movie was freaking awesome, man. That was another really good movie, but it just felt like the zeitgeist just wasn't there. I think they took way too long to put another Mad Max movie into production, and that's why I think Furiosa didn't do so well, but it shouldn't take away from how great that movie is. And I mean, I would say we'll get to that one, but my review for that's already up there on talking about the movie, so if you want to go check it out, that's out there. But Mad Max Fury Road, though, I did really like a lot. Even if you never saw the other Mad Max movies, you could still find a lot of value to watching this. This is still a really great movie. The characters are fun, the action's great, the story, the over-the-top feeling of it. It's a perfect example of summer escapism entertainment. It's a good, fun, silly, over-the-top popcorn action flick. I wouldn't say don't go in there expecting anything logical or anything that could hurt the sanctity of the original films if I had known what they were back then, but yeah, it's just a good, fun time overall to be had. It's a really fun film. Can't recommend it enough. Mad Max Fury Road, top-notch indeed. So, we've had a movie that was really great in Mad Max, a movie that was okay in Pitch Perfect 2, which means we gotta end with a big steaming pile of crap. Here's the latest from the Paranormal Activity director Oren Peli, Area 51, which this looks totally original and not like any of his other works he's done.
Easier to rob a bank than to break into Area 51.
We can be the first one to do it. Motion sensors, there's ammonia sensors, but we're gonna get around it. Am I clear? Yes. There it is. This is Area 51. It goes way down there.
Why did we want to go to Area 51 and do the stupidest things ever? I mean, it's not just this movie, but keep in mind, 4 years later, everyone was going to go ahead and, storm Area 51 by doing the Naruto run, and, I mean, it's just like, why? Like, why do you want to go down in these places? But then again, this is the definition of another one of those movies that has been done to death before, where stupid idiots decide to do something really stupid, and they pay the consequences for it. And yeah, stop me if you heard this plot, because this is such a groundbreaking premise that I've never heard before. It's a found footage horror film with 3 guys who are obsessed with breaking into the U.S. Air Force highly classified facility known only as Area 51. These 3 young friends and zealous conspiracy theorists, Reed, Darren, and Ben, travel to Las Vegas equipped with state-of-the-art gear. They team up with Jelena, the daughter of the secret installation's former employee, and summon up the courage to sneak into the facility, intent on unearthing its otherworldly mysteries. There in the bowels of the heavily guarded compound, terrifying truths and unfathomable knowledge await. And only the audacious UFO's investigators' raw footage can prove their existence. However, can they make it back in one piece to share it with the world? No, of course not, because this is the same goddamn movie we've seen 1,000,000,006 different times. This is the same movie the same director started this trend with Paranormal Activity. This is not even the last movie the second movie that he's done it with. He also produced Chernobyl Diaries, which was Warner Brothers' attempt to try to cash in on the Paranormal Activity franchise. And what a shocker, that film didn't do so well either. This is the same studio that said, "The Devil Inside, come watch this found footage movie about this exorcist, and then we won't even give you an ending. Just go to this website that doesn't exist anymore." Same company. And what a shocker. It's the same goddamn result. It's a terrible fucking movie. And it doesn't work simply because it's just a lather, rinse, repeat type of film. It's the same type of setup. You got the night vision goggles. We got those moments where you're supposed to be quiet and you see these guys being scared and all that. You see something slowly moving in the background. It's just like you see the camera shaking around here. It's just like, we are not that stupid. This trend was dead almost as soon as the last Paranormal Activity movie came out. I mean, that's how bad this movie is. Like, people just didn't give a crap anymore. There are so many other better movies they could be doing with their time with this movie, and there's nothing new to deliver here. There's nothing scary. This is the most laziest. This might be the laziest one of the bunch. I mean, keep in mind, Devil Inside was pretty lazy too, and that one had told you to go to a website to find out what happened, even though that, like I said, that website doesn't exist anymore. But this is just pathetic. It's just, that's the definition, that's the best way I could describe this movie. It's pathetic. And by this point, people were just sick and tired of it. There was no coming back with this franchise, with this concept anymore, because they basically cracked the code for how to make them so quickly. They're cheap to produce. They don't have any good actors involved in it, and they're just the same movie over and over and over again. But some people can make the argument, well, wait a minute, back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, this was the norm to have slasher films like this. Yes, it was, but the differences between back then and today is that they didn't have the internet back then. People still went to those Friday the 13th movies and Nightmare on Elm Street movies, even though sometimes they got worse or better, but yeah, people still went back to those movies. Nobody was coming back to these movies, especially even the Paranormal Activity movies. People were getting sick and tired of them after the 3rd film came out. Like, the 4th film made money, but nobody was really talking about it. And we got another Paranormal Activity movie that would be the nail in the coffin for the series at that point, so yeah, it's just not worth it in the end. There's nothing about these films that are scary. There's nothing about them that they're intelligent. Like, there's nothing clever about them whatsoever. They're lazy, they're cheap to produce, and they're just not good. They're just not good movies. And it's just time to move on and do something better with your creative juices. Like, I mean, can you imagine what the people that made the original well, I would say the original Paranormal Activity, but this is one of those directors. Can you imagine if the director of Paranormal Activity 2, Christopher Landon, went on and just made the same goddamn movie over and over again? We wouldn't have gotten good stuff like Happy Death Day, or, Nobody, or what about the 2 guys from Catfish who did Paranormal Activity 3? You think they would have been you think their careers would have been much better if they just kept doing this over and over again? No. I mean, yeah, I think you get the idea. This is not a very good movie. This is a terrible film, and we're just sick and tired of this already. But don't worry, folks. Jason Blum is going to make sure one of these movies that was cheap to produce and features that follows the same format as it again, because we got another one coming up in a couple of months' time. But we have some time to get there, so I'm just kind of rambling on at this point, honestly. Not much more to really say about this except, yeah, Area 51, just just go play the arcade game. The arcade game is much funner to play than watching this movie. And so, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 3 more movies on Memorial Day weekend, including Brad Pitt's live-action follow-up to Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which sadly was not a big hit. And I do say sadly, personally, because I thought this movie was pretty good. Until we got to the third act. Disney's Tomorrowland, based of course off the Magic Kingdom and the Disney World and Disneyland attraction. But we also have a terrible remake of an 80s horror classic, Poltergeist, which you wouldn't think would be that bad considering it's directed by Gil Kennan, but yeah, not the best movie overall to take a look at. But we also have When Marnie Was There, the latest film from Hayao Miyazaki, and you know what? Why not? Let's go ahead and combine both weeks into one show. We'll also take a look at the last week of the month of May, because there's only 2 movies to look at. We have San Andreas with Dwayne Johnson, and then we have the infamous Aloha from director Cameron Crowe, which basically kind of killed his career for a little bit, featuring a cast that included Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, Alec Baldwin, and I remember back when that movie came out, I said I wasn't going to review it. So it's been 11 years since then. I'll check it out. I'll finally take a look at it and see if it is worthy of the criticisms that it had. But, yeah, so we'll combine 2 weeks next time around, May 22nd and May 29th. So 5 films to take a look at. We'll take a look both weeks coming up tomorrow. So with all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. With all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.